Greetings everyone, my name is Raziel and today it is finally time. The White Scars, without a doubt the most nervously anticipated faction of the expansion, are finally within reach. Today marks the final day of reveals, and I believe this video quite literally marks the end of reveals even, and there are still a few cards left for us to look at, including some very good ones. Are you excited? Nervous? Annoyed by me needlessly dragging out the intro before we can finally look at some cards? Whatever the case, it is now time to rev up the engines and kickstart into the final batch of reveals. Racing swiftly into the pole position is the 3 energy tactic, Ride the Fair Winds. This card makes both players draw 3 cards, accelerating both players' resources quite a bit. Given the White Scars synergy with cards that have just arrived in your hand via the new Impulse mechanic, which should be on screen right now, this card certainly seems to be a decent way of getting new men, and most importantly new bikes, to play and take control over the battlefield. Of course, your opponent is also drawing some cards, but that is probably a fair price to pay for drawing 3 cards without spending 5 or more energy. Coming in second is the Suzure Jet Bike. This 4 energy vehicle has 3 attack and HP, flank, as well as the passive ability to put in play another Suzure Jet Bike when it returns to your hand. This certainly seems to be a great card if we end up getting access to a consistent way of bouncing something back to your hand, like for example a Warlord ability. Of course, at the point of me recording this video, I haven't seen any of the other cards, but if we end up getting a Warlord that bounces something back to the hand, for example, this card will probably be pretty good. Following closely is the Dark Sun, a 3 energy Astartes with 3 attack and 4 HP. Since this man appears to have lost his bike, he obviously doesn't have flank. What he does have, however, is the passive ability to deal 1 to 2 damage to all enemies every time a friendly troop is returned to your hand. This is a very good effect if we, once again, get a way to reliably bounce cards back to our hands, like for example a Warlord ability. But even without one, as long as we have a few bikes that can maybe return to your hand on their own, I imagine the Dark Sun will certainly be a strong card. But the reveals don't stop coming. Another warrior approaches, by foot. This time, however, it's none other than Kharash of the Ebon Keshig Terminators. Kharash is a 7 energy Astartes with 8 attack and HP, as well as frontline. He also has the rally ability to give shield to your Warlord, as well as reduce its ability cost by 1 energy. This guy is an amazing troop for multiple reasons. For one, he really makes sure your Warlord is safe, not just providing a big body as a frontline, but also giving him shield just in case Kharash himself gets destroyed via some form of removal. Additionally, he permanently reduces your Warlord's ability cost, which can be insane, depending on the Warlord ability of course. Ultimately, I firmly believe that he will be a staple, but we will need to see whether he is just good or very good. And that was it for... Hey, wait a minute, I completely forgot something. There was actually supposed to be one more reveal, it was just so unbelievably fast that I completely missed it. But who could be so fast that even I wouldn't notice him? Of course, in case you haven't guessed it already, there can be only one thing that fits this description. The Great Khan himself. No, not Batu, Jaghatai. Jaghatai Khan is a 2 attack and 40 HP legendary warlord with very high initiative. He also has a Reckoning, which we will also get to shortly. His ability costs 1 energy and returns a friendly troop to your hand, and then the next time you use it, it deals 2 damage to a random enemy. Now before I say anything else, I want to give a big thank you to Everguild for not making Jaghatai the next resource generator Primarch. It is greatly appreciated. Now, as I have alluded to throughout the previous reveals, having an option to return a troop to your hand on the Warlord itself is very nice. Jaghatai doing so for 1 energy is therefore amazing. Sadly, I do think this ability is slightly too weak. Being a Primarch, Jaghatai starts with 1 less card in hand due to his Reckoning. Therefore, he oftentimes will be in a situation where he cannot play anything on turn 1 or even turn 2 and 3. This means that he will more or less be passing turn without doing anything, since this ability does nothing if you don't have a troop on the board already. The second part of this ability doesn't need a troop, of course, but you aren't getting that part until you've used it at least once. I believe that the ability would be better if, instead of an alternating ability, the second part, meaning the 2 damage to a random enemy, would happen if you have no troops in play. That way Jaghatai can at least do something if he has no troops on the board. But enough about base Jaghatai though, what about Reckoning? The Reckoning costs 18 energy and goes down by 1 every time you return a friendly troop to your hand. This essentially means Jaghatai can reduce its Reckoning cost by simply using his ability. The Warhawk, his transformation, has 3 attack and 40 HP, sneak attack, and the 2 energy ability to reduce the cost of all cards in your hand by 2 energy. This is a very strong ability. Those of you who were around for the release Emperor's Children know how strong an AoE cost reduction can be. I do believe that the Warhawk is a very strong transformation that will certainly be able to end the game very quickly. To conclude on Jaghatai overall, I feel like the developers were very careful here. They really tried to make base Jaghatai balanced and not too broken, and I really do appreciate that. I think that a White Scars faction that is quote-unquote too fair is a lot better for the game overall than the alternative. And I believe most of you can imagine what the alternative would have looked like. And that concludes my reveals for the final faction of the expansion. Of course, we may still see each other again in a few weeks for the new neutrals, so don't be sad. Now, what are your thoughts on the White Scars? In my opinion, they really nailed the hit and run tactics and the big focus on speed with the new impulse keyword. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the faction ends up being when we can look at all the cards. Also, I hope that we'll see Ilya Ravalion as a warlord as well. Copium. In any case, that was it from me for today. I bid you farewell, and until next time.